June 14th, 1967. 17,000 feet above the Annamite Mountains. The late afternoon sky over Laos glows a washed-out silver, thin clouds smearing across the horizon like brushstrokes. Below, the jungle is a dark, endless carpet, alive, moving, breathing. And cutting through that sky at nearly 500 knots is a U.S. Air Force F-4C Phantom II, call sign Wolf 32. In the front seat, Captain Mark Ellsworth, 26 years old, confident, steady hands, the kind of pilot other pilots trust. In the back seat, First Lieutenant Danny Ruiz, weapons officer, sharp, calm, the voice every Phantom pilot wants in the headset when things go bad. They're returning from a strike run near Chapone, throttles eased back, fuel low but safe. The aircraft hums with the deep twin-engine resonance only a Phantom has, a heavy, muscular vibration you don't hear so much as feel in your ribs. Ellsworth's gloved hand lightly taps the canopy rail. "Easy day," he mutters, half to himself, half to the sky. Ruiz chuckles through the intercom. "Mark, man, don't say that. Never say that. You're tempting the..." A violent crack detonates behind them, a metallic skin-shredding roar like the jet has just been hit with a sledgehammer the size of a truck. The Phantom jerks so hard that Ellsworth's helmet slams sideways against the cockpit frame. Lights explode across the instrument panel. The aircraft rolls left, hard, but the real horror comes a second later, an ungodly shudder, a structural vibration so deep it feels like the aircraft itself is screaming. Ruiz's voice spikes. "Jesus! Tail hit! Something hit the tail! I'm seeing pieces! Mark! I'm seeing metal!" Ellsworth wrestles with the stick, but the Phantom isn't responding, not sluggish, dead. The jet is rolling, falling, corkscrewing. Wind tears across the fuselage in a shrill rising howl. The altimeter spins downward. The jungle below suddenly feels very large, very close. For a split second, Ellsworth is sure they've taken a 37mm ADOA shell. Or worse, a SAM fragment. But there was no impact flash, no trailing smoke. It didn't feel like an explosion. It felt like something broke. The controls go weightless in his hands, not jammed, not stiff, just empty. Something deep in his gut tightens. "Danny, check the tailplane. Do we still have the vertical?" A pause. A horrible pause. Then Ruiz's voice, small, stunned. "Mark, it's gone." Not damaged, not bent, gone. The entire vertical stabilizer, the huge tail fin that keeps the plane pointed straight, has simply vanished. Torn, clean off by a structural failure no pilot trains for, no checklist covers, and no aerodynamics manual says is survivable. The F-4 should now enter an unrecoverable tumble. The textbooks say it should already be flat spinning into the jungle, but Wolf 32 is still in the air, barely, and Ellsworth's instincts are taking over. "Hang on. We're not punching out yet," Ruiz snaps back. "We lost the fin. Mark, we have to eject..." "No." Ellsworth's voice is calm, too calm, because he knows something Ruiz doesn't. He's flown damaged aircraft before. He's flown asymmetric engine settings on training jets. He's felt what raw thrust can do when the airframe stops cooperating. He slams the throttles forward, then yanks one back. Left engine full burner, right engine idle. The Phantom lurches, fighting itself, slewing sideways, but something changes. The roll slows. The nose steadies, slightly. The fall becomes a controlled, shallow descent. Ruiz stares at his instruments in disbelief. "You're flying it on..." "Thrust!" Ellsworth grits his teeth. "Better ideas welcome." The cockpit vibrates like a jackhammer. Every metal seam in the aircraft groans. The airflow over the missing tail produces a deep, oscillating rumble, the kind of aerodynamic growl that means 1 millimeter from catastrophe. But the jet is responding. Barely, like a wounded animal trying to walk on one leg. But it is responding. Below them, the mountains rise like massive green waves. The sun dips lower, turning the world gold. And Wolf 32 keeps flying. Not because it should, but because Ellsworth refuses to let it die. For the next 19 minutes, he will attempt something no pilot has ever done. Something the aircraft manuals say is impossible. Something aerodynamics professors would laugh at. Flying an F-4 Phantom with no tail fin, using nothing but engine thrust asymmetry. But right now, those 19 minutes are still in front of them, and their first problem is the biggest. They are losing altitude fast. The jungle is rising, and the nearest friendly base is far Too far? Ruiz swallows, voice shaking. Mark! Where the hell are we going? Ellsworth doesn't answer because he doesn't know, not yet, but he's going to find a way. He has to, because bailing out over enemy-held Laos is a death sentence, and flying a Phantom with no tail, that's not flying. That's surviving on borrowed time. The Phantom continues bleeding altitude, 17,000 feet, becomes 14,000, then 12,500. The jungle canopy rises to meet them like a black-green ocean waiting to swallow metal and bone. The cockpit trembles with a constant teeth-rattling vibration, as if the jet is held together only by stubbornness and rivets that forgot to let go. Ellsworth steadies his breathing. His right glove tightens over the throttles, the only controls that mean anything now. The control stick is a useless decoration. The pedals, dead metal. He pushes the right throttle forward a hair, then draws it back again, searching for a balance point where the plane doesn't spin, doesn't yaw, doesn't flip. Ruiz watches, barely daring to blink. He whispers, more to himself than to Mark. This thing shouldn't be flying. It should have tumbled the moment we lost the tail. But Ellsworth has no bandwidth for theory. He feels the aircraft through vibrations in the seat, through the slow, stubborn lean of the horizon. Every second is a negotiation with physics. Every movement of the throttles is a gamble. He glances out the left side of the canopy. Nothing. Just jungle stretching to eternity. He glances right and sees something that freezes his blood, a jagged line of metal along the rear fuselage where the stabilizer used to be. Torn wiring whipping like vines in the slipstream, rudder hinge points bent backwards, scorched from friction and aerodynamic heat. The entire tail section looks like it clawed its way out of a fire. Danny, Ellsworth says slowly, any damage on the horizontal stab? Ruiz cranes his neck further, straining against his harness. The horizontals are intact, but the elevators look chewed up. We'd better not test them. We won't, Ellsworth mutters. Stick's useless anyway. Below them, a sloping ridge rises sharply. Ruiz spots it first. Terrain! Terrain! Mark, climb! Climb! I am, Ellsworth snaps, but the engines are near full thrust. There's no climbing left, only not crashing. He slams the left throttle even harder into afterburner. The roar deepens, a violent, chest-pounding blast of raw power. The right engine stays near idle, enough to keep them straight, but not enough to spin them out. The Phantom shudders. The nose inches upward by maybe 3 degrees. That's all they need. They skim the ridge by 200 feet, low enough to see individual trees tilt in their wake. Ruiz's breath catches. Mark, that's not flying. That's black magic. Ellsworth exhales through clenched teeth. Don't tell the Air Force. They'll make me teach this. A moment of strained silence follows. Then the realization hits Ruiz, the one they've both been avoiding. They're over Laos, far from rescue, and this broken jet can barely hold altitude, let alone climb out of enemy airspace. Ruiz clears his throat, voice steadier now and carrying the creeping weight of fear. We need a plan. Ellsworth nods, eyes locked on the trembling horizon. I know. You thinking Thailand? Ruiz asks. Ellsworth lets out a humorless laugh. Thailand? This thing can barely reach the next mountain range. They both know it's true. Udorn and Ubon are impossibly far. Even NKP is a fantasy. Ruiz studies the map clipped to his kneeboard. We've got Lima Site 36, 20-something miles west, dirt strip, mountainous approach. Dirt strip? Ellsworth replies dryly. Danny, we can't even guarantee a straight line. Landing is suicide. Then we bail out, Ruiz says carefully. Ellsworth looks straight ahead. No emotion, no hesitation. We bail out here, over Pathet Lao territory? If we survive the descent, we'll be hunted on the ground. Ruiz doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. They both know bailouts over this region ended in capture, torture, or worse. Ellsworth adjusts the throttles again as the aircraft begins to develop a slight right drift. The jungle tilts. The Phantom bucks, then steadies. It's like balancing on a tightrope, except the rope is snapping and the ground is on fire. Ruiz finally says, Mark, what's the plan? Ellsworth exhaled slowly, eyes narrowing. We find something. A ridge, a plateau, a strip. Whatever's closest, something we can aim for, even if we crash. Crash? Controlled crash, Ellsworth clarifies. If we keep the nose level, we can survive. Mark, we don't have a tail. Controlled crashes aren't on the menu. Ellsworth finally looks back at him, a quick glance that carries exhaustion and determination in equal measure. Danny, everything we're doing right now isn't on the menu. The aircraft suddenly lurches downward, hard, dropping nearly 400 feet in a heartbeat. Ruiz's stomach flips. He grabs the canopy rail for stability. Up! 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 Ellsworth slams both throttles forward for a split second. The engines scream. The Phantom claws back a few hundred feet. But the moment he reduces power again to keep the jet leveled with asymmetric thrust, it begins to yaw. His voice cracks for the first time. Don't do this to me now. Come on, come on. The Phantom steadies, barely. Ruiz watches him, realizing something with a chill. Ellsworth isn't controlling the jet. He's persuading it, like a wounded animal that might collapse at any moment. Mark, Ruiz whispers, I think we might only get one landing attempt. Wherever we choose. That's it, Ellsworth nods. I know. He peers ahead, through haze, through distance, through vibration, and sees something. A break in the mountains, a flat stretch, possibly a meadow, possibly nothing. But it's the closest thing to hope they've seen yet. And the Phantom is heading straight toward it. Ellsworth stares at the pale green opening in the jungle ahead. It's not a runway, it's not even a clearing. More like a sloping hillside with a slightly lighter shade of foliage indicating grass instead of trees. A landing here would be more of a collision softened by vegetation, but compared to the sheer walls of jungle they've been dodging for the past 10 minutes, it might as well be an airbase. Ruiz studies the map again, voice tight. That isn't on the chart. It doesn't have to be, Ellsworth replies. Just has to be somewhere we can meet the ground gently. Ruiz breathes out slowly. Mark, gently isn't in our vocabulary right now. Ellsworth gives the slightest grin. Then we invent new vocabulary. The Phantom descends to 6,000 feet, but it's not a stable descent. It's an unpredictable glide, swaying left and right as if suspended by invisible ropes. The missing vertical stabilizer means the aircraft has no directional spine, no balance. Every gust of wind twists the jet like a crumpled kite. Ellsworth compensates by working the throttles constantly, left engine surging, right engine easing off, right engine pushing, left easing. Tiny adjustments, always tiny. Anything larger triggers a violent, heart-stopping shudder. Ruiz watches Ellsworth's hands moving nonstop, sweat dripping down his wrist cuff. You look like you're playing two pianos at the same time. Ellsworth doesn't look away from the horizon. I'm trying to keep us in the same concert hall. Below them, the clearing approaches. Ellsworth's mind runs through the physics. The Phantom weighs 30,000 plus pounds right now. Without a tail fin, the moment they touch down, the aircraft will pirouette uncontrollably, possibly cartwheel, almost certainly shred its wings. But surviving the initial impact is doable, if he hits as slow as possible. And that's the next problem. Danny, Ellsworth says, we're going to have to throttle back for the descent. Ruiz looks at him like he's insane. We throttle back. We lose control. You said it yourself. I know. But if we hit the ground at full power, we'll crater the cockpit. Engine thrust is keeping us alive, but it's also what will kill us on touchdown. Ruiz swallows hard. Okay, so what's the plan? Ellsworth thinks for a moment. We keep asymmetric thrust as long as we can. Then, the last few seconds, we ease both throttles back together, smooth, slow, controlled. Ruiz shakes his head. There's no way that works. Danny, we've been doing impossible things for the last 15 minutes. The Phantom dips again. A harsh oscillation begins. Left wing down, left again. Ellsworth reduces left engine thrust just enough to stop the roll. The oscillation softens but doesn't disappear. Come on, Ellsworth mutters to the jet. Stay with me. Just a few more minutes. As they get closer to the clearing, Ruiz sees something that chills him. Mark, the ground isn't flat. I know, Ellsworth replies. His voice is steady, too steady. It slopes downward. We're landing on an incline. I know. That's suicide. Ellsworth finally looks at him. Danny, everything around us is suicide. Trees, rocks, ridges. If we overshoot, we hit the mountain wall on the far side. If we undershoot, we catch the treetops and explode. This slope, Gives us a chance to scrub speed. Ruiz falls silent. He understands. A downslope landing means the impact forces are reduced. The aircraft's energy disperses over distance instead of a single slam. It's crazy, but it's workable. The Phantom descends to 3,500 feet. The vibration grows worse, deep, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat inside the fuselage. Ruiz instinctively braces as the cockpit shakes violently. What now? We're getting too slow, Ellsworth says. The airflow over the tail stub is turbulent as hell. We need a bit more power. You add power and we'll climb. We don't add it evenly. Ellsworth surges the left engine for a moment, just enough to bring the nose up without inducing a yaw. Then he taps the right throttle to stabilize. The clearing is now directly ahead. Closer, too close. Ruiz whispers, "Please let this work." Ellsworth tightens his harness, levels the Phantom with micro-adjustments of the throttles, and nudges the nose down. The meadow rises toward them. Every second stretches. The altimeter unwinds. 2,800, 2,700, 2,500. Ruiz holds his breath. Ellsworth makes one final commit. Prepare for touchdown. Ruiz's hands clasp the ejection handles, but he doesn't pull. He trusts Ellsworth. Even now, the Phantom dives slightly, then levels, then begins to sink. Trees rush upward on both sides as they skim the last ridge. The clearing opens beneath them, wide, sloped, alive with wind. Ellsworth whispers the last words Ruiz ever expected to hear. "Throttle back." He starts pulling both throttles smoothly, slowly, and the Phantom begins its final fall. The moment Ellsworth eases the throttles back, the Phantom reacts like an animal losing consciousness. The aircraft doesn't merely descend, it sags, its nose dipping with a weight that feels almost human, as if the jet knows it's dying. The altimeter spins downward, 1,900, 1,700, 1,500 feet. The meadow rushes up at them, a rough, uneven surface of grass, dirt patches, and hidden rocks. The slope angles downward at maybe 5-10 degrees, just enough to stretch time, not enough to guarantee survival. Ellsworth keeps both throttles near idle, but every second at low thrust costs control. The aircraft begins to yaw left, then right, then left again, hard. Ruiz shouts, "Mark, correct it!" Ellsworth can't use rudder, he can't use the stick. All he has left is raw engine power. He slams the left throttle forward a few inches. The yaw slows, but the nose swings the opposite direction. He taps the right throttle. The aircraft steadies, barely. Then something new happens, something far worse. The Phantom starts porpoising, a long, slow, nose-up, nose-down oscillation caused by the unpredictable airflow around the missing tail. Without vertical stabilizer and without elevator authority, the aircraft is now a brick pretending to be an airplane. Ruiz grips the canopy rail with both hands, knuckles white. "Mark, this is it, we're losing it. Hold on." Ellsworth's voice is a whisper, not calm, not terrified, something in between. A man at the edge of mathematics and faith. The meadow fills the windscreen. 800 feet, 700 feet, 600 feet. Ellsworth makes the last big decision of the entire flight. Gear stays up. Ruiz reacts instantly. Agreed. Lowering the landing gear at this speed, with this instability, would cause the jet to trip and somersault. Wheels would dig in, wings would shear, fuel tanks would rip open. Belly landing is the only chance. The Phantom clears the final ridge, barely, its belly scraping the tops of the tallest grass. For a fraction of a moment, they float. A perfect, weightless second, the kind of second pilots remember for the rest of their lives. Then, impact! The Phantom's fuselage slams into the grass with a metallic scream, the shockwave tearing through the cockpit like a hammer blow. Dirt explodes in every direction, chunks of metal shear off instantly. Antenna, panels, vents, flung backward in a storm of sparks and debris. The cockpit jolts so violently that both men's helmets slam forward. Ellsworth tastes blood. Ruiz feels the wind knocked out of him. Then the aircraft skips, like a stone on water. The second impact is worse, louder, heavier. The left engine nacelle collapses, dragging the fuselage sideways. Metal crunches, twisting into a grotesque shape. The jet twists left. Ellsworth surges the right throttle out of reflex, but the engine is starved, coughing, dying. Then the third impact comes, and everything turns into violence. The F-4 slides, plowing through soil and grass, tearing a black gouged scar into the hillside. The friction is thunderous. Fire erupts near the shattered left engine, then sputters out as dirt smothers it. Inside the cockpit, they are thrown forward, harnesses straining, bones rattling. Ruiz feels his spine jar. Ellsworth feels every vertebra vibrate like a tuning fork. Then the jet hits a hidden mound. The nose leaps, the tail slams. The canopy spiderwebs with cracks. A portion of the left wing tears off with a shriek. The world outside is a blur of earth and sky switching places in rapid, chaotic patterns. Every moment feels like flipping through a deck of photographs, each one showing a different angle of doom. And then, silence. A long, ringing silence. The wrecked Phantom rests nose down, tail slightly raised, broken but not burned. Smoke hisses from the right engine as it winds down with a metallic whine. Inside the cockpit, Ellsworth hangs limp in his harness, chest rising and falling, eyes half open. He's alive. Barely. Ruiz coughs violently, spitting dirt and blood. Mark! Mark, hey, talk to me! Ellsworth groans. I'm here! Ruiz tries to move. Pain shoots through his side. Everything hurts. Yeah, Ellsworth mutters. Means you're alive. He tries to reach the canopy jettison handle. The canopy doesn't budge. It's jammed. Ruiz looks around. Smoke curls through the cockpit. Fuel smell is strong. Too strong. They know what comes next. Mark! Fire! I know. They don't panic. They don't scream. They act. Ellsworth unclips his survival knife, braces it against the fractured canopy frame, and begins prying. Ruiz kicks the already cracked plexiglass with everything he has left. The canopy finally gives. A section snaps outward, letting in a flood of humid air. Ellsworth drags himself out, boots slamming onto dirt. Ruiz follows, stumbling, nearly falling. They move fast, limping, half running, getting distance from the wreck. 20 seconds later, the right engine's residual heat ignites a small fuel spill. A fireball erupts from the cockpit. The shockwave knocks them both to the ground, but they're far enough, alive, breathing. Ruiz stares at the burning wreck of Wolf 32, voice shaking. Mark, we shouldn't be here. We should be dead. These jets don't fly without a tail. Ellsworth watches the flames rise into the evening sky. They do, he says quietly, if you're stubborn enough. But the moment of relief is short. Ruiz turns, scanning the jungle. Mark, we need to move. Why? Ruiz gestures toward the smoke trail rising into the sky, visible for miles. We just announced our location to every Pathet Lao fighter in the region. Ellsworth nods slowly. The flight was over. The fight was just beginning. The fire from the wrecked Phantom climbs higher, turning the meadow's dusk into a flickering orange hell. Black smoke coils upward through the humid air, a vertical beacon screaming a single message across miles of quiet wilderness. American aircraft down. Investigate. Ellsworth and Ruiz know exactly what that means. Pathet Lao fighters, Viet Cong trackers, local militia. Even opportunistic hunters. All of them see a downed U.S. jet as a prize. Ellsworth wipes soot from his face and forces himself upright. His knees tremble, but he stays standing. Ruiz pushes himself up beside him, clutching his ribs with one hand. Mark, broken ribs, Ruiz winces. At least 2. Walk it off, Ellsworth mutters, eyes scanning the tree line. Later, Ruiz scoffs. Walk it off. Sure, right after we walk off being dead. Ellsworth doesn't smile. The sounds of the jungle return gradually, as if nature waited for the fire blast to finish before reclaiming its territory. Cicadas buzz with mechanical intensity. A distant bird screeches through the canopy. Leaves rustle under a hot, thick breeze. But beneath those natural rhythms, something else lurks. A faint echo. Metallic clinks. Branches snapping. Human. Many humans. Ruiz hears it first. Mark, we've got movement. Ellsworth turns sharply. The tree line is restless. Shadows crossing shadows. North side. They're circling, Ruiz whispers. No, Ellsworth says softly. They're surrounding. He knows the tactics. He's seen what happens to pilots captured in this region, and he refuses to let that be their ending after surviving an unsurvivable flight. He taps Ruiz on the arm. Gear check. Quick. Ruiz shrugs off his battered parachute harness, digs into the survival kit he keeps strapped to his thigh, and begins inventory. Signal mirror, first aid kit, 1 flare, .38 revolver with 9 rounds, radio, A&T malfunctioning from impact, mosquito net, water pouch. Ellsworth checks his own kit and frowns. Radio's fried, he mutters. Ruiz nods. Mine's half dead. Might get one burst if we're lucky. Ellsworth looks toward the burning wreck. The fire reflects off his eyes. Not here, he says. We don't call from here. Too exposed. Ruiz nods, pain in every motion. So where? Ellsworth points toward the far end of the meadow where the slope merges into dense forest. There. We get into the jungle. High vegetation. Better cover. Ruiz hesitates. You know what's in that jungle, right? Things that bite, Ellsworth says. But things that bite don't shoot. They move. Slowly at first, then faster as the cracks of branches become louder behind them, closer, organized. Halfway across the meadow, Ellsworth hears shouting. Not English. Short, clipped bursts of Lao, Pathet Lao. They freeze. The voices multiply, scattered across the tree line. The militia is using a sweep formation, pushing inward toward the burning jet. Ruiz's breath catches. Mark, they're hurting us. I know. Where do we go? Ellsworth's eyes scan the environment like a machine. Then he sees it. A shallow depression in the ground, oblong, grassy, maybe 3 feet deep. Down there, Ruiz stares. That's not cover. It's concealment, Ellsworth says. Cover isn't happening today. They slide into the depression, flattening themselves against moist earth. Grass partially covers them, but not completely. Through the blades, they can see silhouettes emerging from the tree line. 8, 10, 12 fighters. Dressed in patched uniforms, rifles slung, feet moving silently through the grass. Their faces are hard, eyes sharp. They spread out, inspecting wreckage, boots crunching over twisted metal. Ruiz's heart hammers so hard he fears they'll hear it. He whispers, If they find us. They won't, Ellsworth says softly, even though he isn't sure. One fighter steps dangerously close, maybe 15 feet away. He scans the ground, tilts his head, listens. Ruiz closes his eyes. The fighter steps again, closer, 10 feet 8. Ellsworth grips his revolver under his chest. He knows he won't win, but he'll try. The fighter suddenly turns his head toward a shape on the ground. Ruiz's entire body tenses, but the fighter wasn't looking at them. He was looking at a detached piece of the left wing lying nearby. He kicks it once, grunts something to his comrades, and walks away. Ruiz exhales so hard it almost makes noise. Ellsworth gently raises a finger. Stay still. For 10 agonizing minutes, the militia circles the wreck, shouting back and forth, inspecting the debris field. Smoke billows around them. The meadow glows with dying fire. Then, just like that, the fighters withdraw back into the jungle, heading south. But not all of them. 4 remain, scouting the meadow in a slower, tighter pattern. Ellsworth watches the last group carefully. They're spacing. Their weapons. The small radio one of them carries. He whispers, They're calling for reinforcements. Ruiz turns pale. How many? Ellsworth answers without emotion. Enough to search every inch of this meadow. Ruiz looks toward the jungle edge, dark, dense, silent. Mark, we need to move now. Ellsworth nods. Once they turn away, not before. They wait. Seconds stretch. A breeze bends the grass. One of the fighters turns his back. Then a second. Then all 4 face away. Ellsworth whispers, Go! And the 2 men begin crawling, painfully, slowly, toward the jungle that might save them, or swallow them forever. Ellsworth and Ruiz crawl toward the tree line, every movement precise, calculated, and painfully slow. The humid air feels thicker here, heavy enough to chew. Sweat collects in their eyebrows and slips into their eyes. Insects buzz at their ears as they drag themselves forward across damp grass and dirt that clings to their uniforms. Behind them, the Pathet Lao fighters continue inspecting the crash site. Their silhouettes rise and fall in front of the burning phantom, rifles slung loosely but ready. The flames crackle, throwing twisted shadows across the meadow like restless fingers reaching outward. Ellsworth's hand reaches the first thick roots that mark the boundary of the jungle. He pulls himself into the shade of an overhanging canopy. Ruiz follows, gasping, clutching his broken ribs. The transition from meadow to forest is instant, a curtain of green obscuring everything behind them. The jungle swallows them whole, Once inside the dense vegetation, the sounds of pursuit fade just enough to give them breathing room. The smell of wet earth and rotting foliage surrounds them, a thick, organic scent that masks the blood and sweat on their bodies. "Keep moving," Ellsworth whispers. "We need distance before we call anything in." Ruiz nods, but his face is contorted with pain. "Yeah, just don't let me slow you down." Ellsworth stops, turns, and grabs Ruiz by the shoulder. "You're not slowing anything. We walk together until someone picks us up or we put our boots on a friendly base." Ruiz manages a thin smile. "Copy that." They push deeper into the jungle, stepping over roots, ducking under hanging vines, moving through the narrow gaps where the undergrowth is thin enough to slip through. Sunlight barely penetrates the canopy here, just occasional shafts of gold slicing through the green gloom. After about 10 minutes of steady movement, Ellsworth signals a halt. "Here," he whispers. They kneel behind a massive fallen tree, its trunk soft with decay, riddled with moss and insects. The air is still, heavy, the perfect hideaway. Ruiz carefully pulls out his half-functional survival radio, a compact PRC-90 unit with a crumpled antenna. Ellsworth frowns. "That thing took a beating." Ruiz taps it. "Yeah, well, so did we." He extends the antenna, aiming it upward through a small gap in the branches. "Battery's low," he breathes. "We'll get one shot, maybe two if the radio gods are kind." Ellsworth nods. "Make it count." Ruiz takes a deep breath, closes his eyes, and presses the transmit button. A faint, static-laced whine fills the air. Then, nothing. No tone, no automatic squawk, just dead air. "Try again," Ellsworth says quietly. Ruiz presses again, wiggles the antenna, adjusts the power switch. Another hiss. Static crackles, then fades. Ruiz's jaw tightens. "Mark, this thing might be fried." Ellsworth leans closer. "Danny, don't stop." Ruiz tries again, and again. On the fifth attempt, a faint beep chirps through the speaker. Both men freeze. The radio is alive. Barely. Ruiz immediately switches to guard frequency. "This is Wolf 32 Bravo," Ruiz whispers into the mic. "We are down and alive. Repeat, we are down and alive. Need immediate ASAR, hostile forces in the vicinity." Static swallows his voice. Silence. Then, a flicker. A faint, broken transmission. "Left 32. Copy. Signal weak. Triangulating." Ruiz's eyes widen. "We've got them." Ellsworth grips his shoulder. "Danny, keep it short. They'll be tracking the signal too." Ruiz transmits again, whispering fast. "Down north of Chapone, near a slope clearing, enemy patrols on site. Request fast extract, coordinates approximate." The radio crackles. "Understood. Hold position, Air America Hilo inbound. 20 minutes. Then the signal dies entirely. Ruiz exhales, shaking. 20 minutes. "Mark, that's a lifetime." Ellsworth peers back toward the meadow, now invisible behind layers of trees and vines, but close enough that he can still faintly hear shouting. "We won't wait 20 minutes in the open," he says. "We keep moving. Keep the rescue team guessing, not the enemy." They push deeper into the forest, navigating by instinct, moving carefully but consistently. Every sound makes Ruiz wince. Every snapped twig sounds like a rifle cocking. After 7 minutes, they find a natural ravine, a crack in the earth lined with ferns and shaded by towering bamboo stalks. The air here feels cooler, somehow safer. "This is good," Ellsworth says. "Rescue can spot us from above. Enemy won't see us unless they fall in." They crouch low. The shouting from the meadow grows louder. They're being tracked. Ruiz grips his revolver. "Mark, if it comes to it—" "No!" Ellsworth says sharply. "We didn't survive that flight to die here." The jungle noise shifts. A distant thumping, low, rhythmic, mechanical. Ruiz's eyes widen. "Is that—" Ellsworth nods slowly, listening. "It is." Rotor blades, a helicopter, breaking through the distant canopy like a metallic wasp. Ruiz looks up through the thin slivers of sky. A shadow flickers overhead, fast, agile. Then a second one behind it. Air America, twin UH-1s, one flying escort, one flying rescue. Ellsworth waves a small signal panel toward the sky, short, precise movements in the gap between leaves. The first helicopter circles wide, scanning. The second dips lower, closer, hovering above the ravine. A rope drops. "Go!" Ellsworth shouts. Ruiz grabs the rope with one arm, groaning at the pain shooting through his ribs, and begins ascending. The downwash blasts leaves and dirt into a swirling storm. Ruiz grits his teeth and climbs. Ellsworth waits, listening for enemy shouts. None close enough. He grabs the rope and climbs fast. Halfway up, a gunshot cracks somewhere in the jungle. A second, a third. The helicopter jerks. The crew chief leans out, shouting over the rotors, "Move it, move!" Ellsworth climbs harder. Another gunshot. A round snaps through the branches beneath him. Then he reaches the crew chief's hand, gets yanked into the cabin, and the helicopter banks away in a hard turn. The ravine shrinks below them, then disappears entirely. Ruiz lies flat on the cabin floor, breathing like every inhale might break him in half. Ellsworth sits beside him, staring at the jungle falling away behind them. Ruiz whispers, voice cracking. 19 minutes, Mark. That's how long we flew without a tail." Ellsworth watches the last tendrils of smoke rising from the wreck far below. "And 20 minutes, walking through hell," he replies. Ruiz rests his head back, closing his eyes. "But we made it." Ellsworth leans back against the vibrating cabin wall. "Yeah," he says softly, "we made it." The helicopter lifts higher into the sky, leaving the smoke, the wreck, and the near-death flight buried behind the jungle canopy. They were never supposed to survive the loss of a phantom's tail, but they did. Not by luck, not by training, not by manuals, but by the sheer impossible determination of two men who refused to die where physics said they should.